I spent almost 20 years of my life in denial of the fact that I was abusing alcohol. I've had more treacherous hangovers than I can count, put myself in more dangerous situations than anybody ever should have, that could have ended tragically for myself or someone else. And I spent so much time trying to hide this issue, this problem that I was having because I was so ashamed of it, but I wasn't ready to do anything about it. If I had saved every penny that I have squandered on alcohol, I would be able to buy my dream home at least twice. I say all of that to say I look at my life now and I don't recognize myself back then in those days. It seems so far removed, not just from who I am now, but from who I've ever been. It's like I was on a completely different timeline. And maybe I was. Spiritual people, you know what I'm talking about. If you have ever struggled with your relationship with alcohol, if you're sober curious or you're participating in Dry January, then I invite you to tune in to this episode of the On Some Real Shift podcast. This show was birthed because I really want to have real conversations on what it takes to shift your mindset and up-level your life, and it is impossible for me to do that authentically if I skip this part of the story. I could have never predicted some of the things that have happened since dropping the habit. If you want to know what your life can look like without alcohol, then this one's for you. It's time to tune in and shift with me. Welcome back to the On Some Real Shift podcast, where I have real conversations on what it takes to shift your mindset and up-level your emotional and spiritual life. I'm your host, Vanessa. I'm going to skip the fancy titles today and just tell you that I am a student of the university, as I like to say, because there is no certification, no classroom, nothing that could have taught me more than I have learned through my own life experience on this one. Welcome back. If you find yourself triggered by anything that I say in this episode, then I'd argue that that's a good thing. And you would know that if you watched episode 2, where I talk about triggers and why you should embrace them. But it's not about that right now. It probably means that I have struck a nerve or gotten a little bit too personal to a part of your life that could require some more attention. If you feel triggered, feel bothered, feel called out, feel anything about this episode, just know that I see you. I feel your pain. I feel your struggle. I was literally there for 20 years. There's nothing to be ashamed about. You absolutely have the power to change. You just have to be willing to do it. And it is going to take some work. I always tell y'all, I'm not here to judge anybody because I can't. I think it was like 2015, 2016 when I found myself on the phone with the police because my boyfriend at the time had just become physically abusive to me. He headbutted me and I got this huge knot on like my eye/forehead. It was like right here. It was so gross. We had demolished a bottle of Jameson, gotten into an argument. He got upset. I don't even know what happened other than I remember him literally taking my head and butting his against mine. At that point, he had never put his hands on me ever, had never made me feel fear for my life or my safety in any way. He had been emotionally and financially abusive, but never physically. I remember he blamed me for getting him upset and then blaming me for him headbutting me, and then in turn the legal consequences that he suffered. I had allowed him to gaslight me into thinking that what had transpired was my fault. I remember apologizing to him more about calling the police after he headbutted me and created that ugly ass knot on my forehead than he ever did about actually headbutting me. I stayed home for weeks so nobody could see what had happened. I don't even remember what I told my parents, but I remember knowing that I had hit a new low and I was so ashamed. I had no self-esteem and it was hugely related to alcohol. I just had no idea at the time. I started drinking when I was like 15 or 16, which is terrible. It was me and a friend. We had gone to the cabinet wherever my parents kept their alcohol and we took a bottle of dark spiced rum. It was disgusting. We took it to the basement, probably drank it straight, and I remember getting super giggly and silly and having a good time. And, you know, there was that taboo of we're not supposed to be doing this. My parents don't know. And we, like I said, we had a good time. We had a lot of fun. And that was kind of the start of it. We had no business drinking at that age. Nobody taught us how to. We had no idea that the objective of drinking is not to see how much you can drink. Although I would argue there is no objective to drinking, but you get what I mean. Nobody taught us. So we were drinking to get drunk from the very beginning. That was the start of a slippery slope of extremely low self-esteem. I just didn't realize it. High school was horrible for me. I had no idea who I was. Like I keep saying, I struggled with self esteem. I didn't seem to fit in with anything or anybody. I was different for a lot of different reasons. But alcohol made me feel like I fit in, right? Because that was the one bonding factor between me and those around me. It was a false sense of bonding, I should say. Everybody in my circle was doing it. I don't even know how we got to that point. I remember there was like a convenience store up the street who would knowingly serve alcohol to minors. They would serve us these wine coolers or wine in a box, 40s, just all of it. And it was just enabled from a very, very young age. I remember taking alcohol to school and my parents had no idea and nobody would have ever suspected it because I was, a student athlete. I was in the International Baccalaureate program doing well. I played instruments. I had a job. I was a good kid on the outside. I just got very good at learning how to hide those devious behaviors, and I didn't realize that would translate into me hiding my drinking as an adult. Fast forward, the drinking just got heavier in college because, right, that's when you're supposed to be binge drinking. So again, it was completely normal at that point, and I also was legal, so I didn't think it was a big deal. Shifting into my 30s, my hangover started to get really bad. I was like 35, and my body was screaming at me, enough. One glass of wine would still give me a headache and a hangover, poor quality sleep, but I still was choosing to drink. It would take me at least 2 days to feel normal again. I remember hugging the toilet more times than I could count, to the point I was vomiting bile. I would have these headaches that felt like I had gotten hit in the back of my head with like a cinder block, but I would still pick up alcohol the next weekend and do it all over again. For the 2 years leading up to when I actually stopped drinking alcohol, I had this constant voice looming in the back of my head saying, Vanessa, if you ever want to get out of this cycle, if you want to ever hit the next level, if you want to ever be free, you have to give up alcohol. I knew it. I knew it for so long, probably more than 2 years, actually. I'd say at least 5 years now that I think about it. I knew it had to go. I never craved alcohol, so it wasn't that type of thing. But the issue with me was I was scared of what I was going to lose if I gave it up. But I let the fear of whatever I thought I was not going to be without alcohol stop me from taking care of myself. I remember I had horrible sleep. Anytime I would drink, 2 days later, I would be up all night going to pee because my body was trying to get rid of that alcohol. I think by that time, my liver was like, girl, we can't do this anymore. It contributed to my weight gain. I've always battled with my body as an adult. So I lose weight, I gain weight. And it was terrible for my weight loss journey because I was eating like super fatty foods to try and soak up the food, especially late at night. My energy was terrible because that's what happens when you drink alcohol. Your body is fighting to get rid of it. And like I said, the quality of my sleep was poor. I wasn't exercising. I was not taking care of myself. Even though I had already entered my healing journey at some point in my 30s, I was still very emotionally fragile. My lows were super, super low. My depression was just a constant. Even on good days, it felt like a heavy cloud that was always just kind of hanging out back here. My friendships were fine, but they were very surface level oftentimes. I had a lot more acquaintances that I have now because we would just get together and go to the bar and catch up. But a lot of the times they weren't super meaningful friendships. I was just spending time to spend time with somebody and get drunk. And I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm just saying that these are people, and me too. I'm sure they felt the same way about me. Like, probably not people that I would have spent time with ordinarily, but I did because alcohol was the bonding factor. I was just wasting a lot of my time and energy. Even after leaving that long toxic relationship, the quality of the men I was attracting was still pretty low budget because I hadn't really built my self-esteem yet. I still didn't know who I was. I was tolerating low vibrational behavior because I hadn't learned a sense of how valuable I was. I knew cognitively, but I couldn't feel it because I was so far disconnected from myself, but I just didn't know it. I just remember for years knowing I needed to cut it out, but being scared because I didn't know how. I felt like, well, what is my life going to be then? I remember feeling scared that I wasn't going to have the power to do it. And I was scared of everything that I thought I was going to lose. I didn't think it was going to be possible for me to find a partner who's going to love me because I didn't drink. I didn't think it was going to be possible for me to find a partner who didn't drink themselves or barely drinks themselves, which I know is false now because I got a good one. I was afraid my friends weren't going to think that I was fun anymore. I kept thinking, well, how's life going to be fun if I don't have alcohol to fuel it? These situations are not going to be as enjoyable. These concerts, these shows, these vacations, whatever. I had no clue how restricted I was because of alcohol. I'll never forget, it was a Saturday morning. It was August 13th, 2022. And I woke up and legitimately said, I'm done. I remember saying it out loud. I was in my bedroom and I said, I'm done. I'm done. I've had enough. I've had enough. I'm sick of my shit. And I'm not going to go into details about it on this episode, but if y'all want to know, I can have another one. But I really just got tired. I got tired of the poor mental health, the poor body image issues, the lack of energy, the poor sleep, the hangovers. I knew logically that something wasn't making sense, that I didn't have anything positive to attribute alcohol to, but I still couldn't seem to give it up. And when I framed it like that, I said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I legitimately woke up and said, enough. I stopped cold turkey and never looked back. It's been about 2.5 years, and I just don't see a world where I would ever even want to entertain alcohol in my life. The thought of it gives me a headache. I put together a list of 10 things that happened since I stopped drinking alcohol that I would have never imagined that I want to share with you all. So, here are 10 things that happened since I've given up alcohol that I would have never, ever predicted. Okay, sorry, the sun was doing the most, so I had to move some things around. Number 1 is I gained a true sense of confidence, something that nobody can take away from me. There is so much power in being able to show up in a room as my true and authentic self. I don't need anything to make me feel more comfortable, and it took a while to get here. I remember going to my first outing alcohol-free, and it was actually at like a lounge. So there were tons of bars, club music going. I was there for like a friend's birthday, and I was a little nervous because everybody around me was drinking, legitimately everybody. So I got a club soda and a lime to hold in my hand so that I wouldn't stick out. And my confidence built up slowly that night. I realized nobody was really paying attention to me in the way that I thought that they were. And nobody was noticing that I wasn't drinking because they were already tipsy and drunk. I felt very powerful. I felt in control. I don't say this with judgment, but I do remember that night thinking, wow, we're here to celebrate somebody's birthday. And everybody, or 95% of the people here, are really drunk. They're not present. They're not actually here celebrating. How can you celebrate somebody if you're not actually mentally here? And that was a huge shift for me. Number 2, my sleep has drastically improved. Oh my gosh. There is this misconception that when you drink that it helps you sleep. It doesn't. It might knock you out, but in reality, you're just passing out. You're not getting good quality of sleep. Science shows that alcohol significantly interferes with the time that we spend in REM sleep, and that is when we get our deepest sleep. That's why if you drink and if you sleep 10, 12 hours, you're not feeling rested because you're just kind of passed out. You're not in that deep part of sleep where your body is actually recharging. Number 3, my depression is almost non-existent, honestly. And I'm not here to tell you that if you stop drinking, your depression is going to go away. I am not a medical professional. However, as somebody who has struggled with depression their entire life, literally since elementary school, I feel like I have cured it myself. I really do. And I get it, there's no cure, but alcohol is literally called a depressant because it slows down your brain activity and like the stimulation to your central nervous system, which can absolutely affect your thinking, your behavior, and in turn, your mood. I cannot tell you the last time I felt that super low that I felt when I was drinking alcohol. Number 4, my energy levels have increased dramatically because I'm able to sleep, because I'm not battling hangovers that are getting in the way of my gym time. Just the processes that your body has to go through to get alcohol out of your system is exhausting. Number 5, my discipline has drastically improved in most areas of my life. I still got some work to do. However, me choosing not to drink was really me being disciplined, and I get it. Not everybody is as lucky as me. I fully recognize that kicking alcohol is very, very hard, and not a lot of people can just wake up one day and say, I'm done. But there is a level of discipline that has trickled into several other areas of my life since I've stopped. Work alone, I am able to function with a much clearer mind. It helps me become more productive and get things done. Number 6, my emotional regulation has improved drastically. Now, this took, I'd say, about 9 months to get there. There is a long process of things that happens to our bodies and changes as the time between our last drink and present day increases. So the longer you spend without drinking, the more our body repairs itself. It took a while. And I'm not saying that I don't get upset, angry, stressed. I do, but I'm just able to regulate it a lot more. My baseline is just a lot more peaceful. Number 7, my feminine health has drastically improved. Ladies, alcohol dehydrates our entire body, including down there. That's all I'm gonna say. Number 8, the quality of my relationships has improved drastically because I'm no longer spending time with just anybody. My interactions are far more fruitful. They're more meaningful because I am present in the moment. I'm a lot more intentional about how I spend my time because I realize my time is valuable. I think it's just a natural thing that happens when you realize I wasted a lot of time being wasted. Number 9, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't say this sooner. My finances have been so much better without alcohol in my life. Like I said, if I had saved every penny that I have spent on liquor, the things I'd be able to afford right now. I have money to spend on more meaningful things. And it also just kind of makes you realize, wow, I wasted so much money on that. Let me be mindful of the other things that I might be wasting my money on. Number 10, I experience life through a lens of gratitude far more than I ever have on a regular basis. And I think it's because I'm able to fully take in life's experiences without being clouded by a substance. I can now experience the true beauty and essence of life because I'm here. I'm fully aware. And I'm going to give y'all a bonus. Number 11, my spiritual gifts have multiplied in ways that I could have never predicted. I mean, I have freaked myself out. I will create a whole new episode on just like spiritual gifts and how to cultivate them, but kicking alcohol was such a game changer. I'm telling you, my intuition has reached new levels of intuition. And it makes sense because removing alcohol from my life really forced me to face myself. How on earth can we connect to the universe if we are not connected to ourselves? My angel numbers speak to me so much more loudly. I am claircognizant and clairsentient. So I just be knowing, and I rarely question it now because it's just loud. Just the confirmations are loud. And if you're not spiritual, you're not going to get it, and that's okay. But for those of you who are, just know the gifts, they multiply. There's just such a calm in me that allows me to know that my knowings are correct. Honestly, I could list a bunch more, but these are the 11 that just came to my mind very quickly, very easily. Now that I've been sober for 2.5 years, I see why they call it being alcohol free. There is so much freedom in not being tethered to that bottle. I mean, not having to think, oh my gosh, how am I going to get home tonight? Am I going to take an Uber? Am I going to spend the night here? Like, I was tired of planning, having to plan my life around, I'm going to drink, I'm going to have a hangover, I'm going to get good sleep because I drink. Like, no. Like, enough. It just became exhausting. Now I could go wherever I want and leave whenever I want because I'm in control. It's so freeing. You just don't know it until you know it. Life is just so much more colorful without alcohol. It's so beautiful. The connections that I make have been awesome. You know, if you're worried about not finding your people, life being boring, there not being anything for any of us to do, don't be. I just went to the Mindful Drinking Festival in Washington, D.C. this past weekend and had an awesome time. I only went for a few hours on the last day, and I'm so mad at myself. I wish I had gone all weekend. I met the dopest people with the best energy, who were on the same vibes, who were all about elevation. A lot of people who had struggled previously. They had educational panels. They had tons of vendors, which, by the way, I have like 5 followers, so I feel like this goes without saying, but this is absolutely not sponsored by any means. But I found my new favorite little drink. It's called Breeze. You can see there were 4 here. I'm on the last one already. It's called Breeze. Yeah, there we go. So good. So good. Now, this one is infused with cannabinoids and lion's mane mushroom. So if you don't want the cannabinoids, I think they have one without it. It made me feel slightly euphoric, yet super relaxed. It was just a good time. Not at all like alcohol, but it was just a very nice, clean feeling of euphoria mixed with relaxation. Listen, whether you're trying to reduce or completely stop your alcohol consumption, I say try it. I am in love. And I met their brand ambassadors. They're awesome. I met a couple. So for dry January, replace your alcohol with these. But anyway, I bring it up to say, like, it was a super great time. I went by myself because shout out confidence that I can show up in any room by myself as I am. And I met some really dope people, and the energy was incredible. I look forward to going back in the future. There are spaces for us, and there are far more people that are on the no and low alcohol wave than you even think. So, yep, I'm going to leave it right there. If you are worried about whatever you might lose by stopping alcohol, I promise you, you have so much more to gain. If you're struggling, I'll put some resources in the description below. If you're struggling, just know that I'm sending you love and I see you. I've been there. Don't be ashamed. Find people on your wave. It's also nobody's business if you don't want it to be. So there's that. Just know that I support you, and there's just so much beauty to be found on the side of being alcohol free, honestly. I hope this episode was helpful. I thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Peace.